Aita for asking my wife for an open relationship after 2 years without sex, plus update. My wife and I have been married for 8 years. We tied the knot when we were both 22, fresh out of college, and blissfully unaware of just how much life can throw at you. Our love was, and still is, strong. 3 years ago, life hit us hard. My wife was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Let me tell you, watching the person you love face something as terrifying as cancer is an experience that changes you. She went through surgery and treatment with the kind of strength that left me in awe. She was a warrior. I was there every step of the way, trying to be the rock she needed, but let's face it, she was the stronger one. After her surgery, sex was off the table, for obvious reasons. I didn't mind. I mean, how could I? Her recovery and health were the priority, and I knew we'd find our way back to intimacy when the time was right. In the beginning, she still made an effort. She'd give me oral sex regularly, which, considering her circumstances, felt like a huge act of love on her part. I tried to reciprocate in ways that wouldn't hurt her: massages, cuddles, and other non-penetrative forms of intimacy. But it was hard, both literally and emotionally. Then, over time, her sex drive began to fade. At first, it was gradual, a few weeks, then months without anything physical. I chalked it up to her still recovering, both physically and emotionally. But now it's been 2 years, and her desire for intimacy is completely gone. On special occasions, my birthday, our anniversary, she'll reluctantly give me oral sex, but it feels more like a chore than an act of love. And for someone who craves that connection, it's a tough pill to swallow. I want to make one thing clear: I love my wife. I am still wildly attracted to her. She's beautiful, smart, funny, and the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. But I'm also a human being with needs. And the thought of going the rest of my life without a fulfilling sex life? It's daunting. I've tried to talk to her about this. Not once, not twice, but countless times. I've approached the topic from every angle I can think of: gently, rationally, emotionally. I've tried to be understanding and empathetic, but no matter how I bring it up, the answer is always the same: she's just not into it anymore. She says it's not about pain or discomfort, just a complete lack of desire. Next year, I'll be 30. It's a milestone I once thought of as impossibly far away. Back when I was 22, 30 sounded like the age of a settled adult, someone who knew what they were doing and had everything figured out. And yet, here I am, staring down that number, wondering how I ended up in this predicament. My wife and I have been married for 8 years. We tied the knot when we were both 22, fresh out of college, and blissfully unaware of just how much life can throw at you. Our love was, and still is, strong. We were the kind of couple people called relationship goals, though I sometimes wonder if they knew how much work goes into maintaining that facade. 3 years ago, life hit us hard. My wife was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Let me tell you, watching the person you love face something as terrifying as cancer is an experience that changes you. She went through surgery and treatment with the kind of strength that left me in awe. She was a warrior. I was there every step of the way, trying to be the rock she needed, but let's face it, she was the stronger one. After her surgery, sex was off the table, for obvious reasons. I didn't mind. I mean, how could I? Her recovery and health were the priority, and I knew we'd find our way back to intimacy when the time was right. In the beginning, she still made an effort. She'd give me oral sex regularly, which, considering her circumstances, felt like a huge act of love on her part. I tried to reciprocate in ways that wouldn't hurt her: massages, cuddles, and other non-penetrative forms of intimacy. But it was hard, both literally and emotionally. Then, over time, her sex drive began to fade. At first, it was gradual, a few weeks, then months without anything physical. I chalked it up to her still recovering, both physically and emotionally. But now it's been 2 years, and her desire for intimacy is completely gone. On special occasions, my birthday, our anniversary, she'll reluctantly give me oral sex, but it feels more like a chore than an act of love. And for someone who craves that connection, it's a tough pill to swallow. I want to make one thing clear: I love my wife. I am still wildly attracted to her. She's beautiful, smart, funny, and the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. But I'm also a human being with needs. And the thought of going the rest of my life without a fulfilling sex life? It's daunting. I've tried to talk to her about this. Not once, not twice, but countless times. I've approached the topic from every angle I can think of, gently, rationally, emotionally. I've tried to be understanding and empathetic, but no matter how I bring it up, the answer is always the same: she's just not into it anymore. She says it's not about pain or discomfort, just a complete lack of desire. Update. Alright, so first off, thanks for the avalanche of comments, advice, and, colorful judgments. Didn't realize asking a question would turn me into Reddit's main character for a day. I've been called everything from reasonable to an inconsiderate man-child to someone's spirit animal. The internet is wild. Anyway, I thought I'd update you all on the situation because, well, things have happened. Spoiler, no one's divorced, dead, or having secret flings in a parking lot. Yet. After my wife calmed down from the initial what the actual hell reaction to the whole open relationship suggestion, we sat down and had another talk. And by talk, I mean I groveled like a guy who's just realized he accidentally burned dinner and forgot the anniversary. I told her, again, but less like a doofus this time, that I love her and that the whole open relationship thing wasn't about me not loving her or thinking she's not enough. It's just that I've been feeling stuck, like, I want to grow old with her, but the idea of giving up sex forever is making me feel like I'm already a 90-year-old man yelling at clouds. Turns out, she's been feeling pretty stuck too. She opened up more about how the cancer and surgery really messed with her head, like she feels disconnected from her body, and sex has just been weird for her ever since. She told me she's felt like she's failing me because she knows I'm not happy, but she doesn't know how to fix it. That hit me hard. Like, punch to the gut hard. I'll admit, I was so caught up in my own frustrations that I didn't realize how much pressure she's been putting on herself. I mean, I knew she wasn't into sex anymore, but I didn't connect the dots on how deep it ran for her. So yeah, turns out I was that guy, not an a-hole, just a clueless idiot. We agreed that this isn't something we can fix overnight, or over one birthday, if you catch my drift. We're going to start couples therapy, which, if I'm being honest, kind of scares me because I have no idea what I'm doing. But hey, it's better than awkwardly Googling how to fix your marriage without looking like a jerk. As for the whole open relationship idea, that's off the table. For now, at least. I'm not saying it was a bad idea, I mean, come on, it was a solution, but I see now that it was way too much, way too soon, and definitely not what she needed to hear. Oh, and for anyone wondering, yes, my birthday is coming up. No, I'm not going to bring up oral sex. Lesson learned. Instead, I'm just going to focus on making her feel loved and supported because, honestly, she deserves that more than anything. So yeah, that's where we're at. Still married, still figuring it out, and still no sex. But hey, there's hope and therapy, so we'll see where this goes. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, and please, for the love of all things holy, stop giving me weird advice. I don't need your one weird trick for marriage, Susan. Aita for suggesting an open relationship after my girlfriend said she doesn't want sex anymore? So, here's the deal. My girlfriend, 27F, and I, 29M, have been together for 4 years. She's smart, funny, absolutely gorgeous, and my best friend in the whole world. I love her to death. She's the person I want to spend my life with, like, marriage and little old people arguments about soup kind of life. That said, there's one tiny issue. Over the past year or so, she's completely lost interest in sex. At first, I thought it was just a phase, stress, work, maybe I wasn't being as attentive as I should have been. But nope, it's a full-on lifestyle change for her now. She says she just doesn't care about sex anymore. We've talked about it. A lot. She told me it's not about me or anything I've done, she just feels like her libido has packed its bags and left for greener pastures. She still loves me, wants to be with me, and thinks I'm hot, her words, but she just doesn't want sex. Like, at all. Now, I've been patient. I've tried everything, romantic getaways, fancy dinners, back massages, surprise flowers, you name it. Nothing works. I even asked her if she wanted to see a therapist or doctor to figure out what's going on, but she said she's fine and that this is just her new normal. Here's the thing, I'm not fine. I still have a sex drive, and it's been over a year since we've been intimate. And yeah, I know relationships are about more than sex, but it's really important to me. It's not just about the act, it's about the connection, the closeness, the feeling of being wanted. So, after a lot of internal debate, and probably too much Googling, I decided to bring up the idea of an open relationship. I didn't come at it like, hey, I want to go hook up with people. I framed it as a way to meet my physical needs while staying with the person I love most. I told her I wasn't trying to pressure her, and I'd only pursue it if she was 100% on board. Her reaction was, not great. She got super quiet at first, and then she just exploded. She called me selfish, said I was basically asking for a hall pass to cheat, and accused me of not loving her anymore. She stormed out of the room, and we didn't talk for the rest of the day. When we finally did talk, she said the idea made her feel like she wasn't enough for me and that it hurt her to think I'd want to be with someone else. I tried to explain that this wasn't about replacing her or loving her any less, it was just about finding a way to make both of us happy. But she wasn't having it. Now things are tense. She hasn't outright said no, but she also hasn't said yes. Meanwhile, I feel like I've opened Pandora's box and can't close it. So, Reddit, Aita for even suggesting this? I don't want to lose her, but I also don't know if I can spend the rest of my life suppressing this part of myself. I'm stuck, and I could really use some perspective here. Alright, so here's the promised update. First off, wow. I didn't expect my post to blow up like it did. Y'all had a lot to say, some supportive, some brutal, and some that made me question if you were actually reading my post or just here for blood. Either way, thanks, I guess? So, after my girlfriend cooled down a bit, and after I read a bunch of your comments, which were equal parts helpful and terrifying, we had another talk. And by talk, I mean I very carefully tried to explain myself without sticking my foot even further down my throat. I started by apologizing. Not for how I feel, but for how I presented the whole open relationship thing. I told her I wasn't trying to blindside her or make her feel like she wasn't enough for me. I explained that I'd been holding all this in for so long that it kind of just exploded out in the worst way possible. She told me she appreciated the apology, but she was still hurt. She said the idea of me wanting to be with other people, even if it's just physical, made her feel like she wasn't enough. And yeah, I get that. I really do. But then she opened up about her side of things. Turns out, there's been a lot going on that I didn't fully grasp. She said she's been dealing with body image issues, stress from work, and just a general feeling of burnout. On top of that, she's been worried that her lack of interest in sex was making me miserable, which, to be fair, it kind of was. But instead of talking to me about it, she just kept it bottled up because she didn't want to feel like she was failing as a partner. Hearing that was like a punch to the gut. I felt like an idiot for not realizing how much she's been struggling. I told her that I don't want her to feel like she has to force herself to do anything she's not comfortable with. I love her for her, not just for what we do in the bedroom. But I also told her that physical intimacy is important to me, and I need us to find some kind of middle ground. So, here's where we landed. Couples therapy. Yeah, I know, classic Reddit move. But honestly, it feels like the best step right now. We've already found a therapist who specializes in relationships, and we're starting next week. Personal therapy for her. She admitted that she might need to work through some stuff on her own, especially when it comes to her self-esteem and stress levels. The open relationship thing is off the table for now. She said she's not ready to even consider it, and I told her I wouldn't push it. Right now, we're focusing on fixing what's broken between us before bringing anyone else into the equation. So yeah, that's where we're at. It's not perfect, but I feel like we're finally on the same page. For the first time in a while, I feel hopeful. Oh, and for those of you who called me a monster, a genius, or some combination of both, thanks for the laughs. At the very least, this whole experience has been humbling. Aita for not letting my cheating mother-in-law babysit my daughter? First, let me lay out the situation because it's messy, and I need a sanity check here. My husband, 26M, recently found out that his stepmom, 52F, the woman who has been in his life for over a decade is cheating on his dad, 60M. And not just any kind of cheating, this is some next-level betrayal that has left all of us reeling. Here's the backstory: my father-in-law has had a rough few years. He's battled serious heart issues, undergone multiple surgeries, and is, quite honestly, hanging on by sheer willpower. He's an incredible man who's always been there for his family, and through everything, his one wish has been to live out his remaining years in peace and happiness. Meanwhile, his wife, my MIL, has been living it up. For years, there's been tension between them because of her drinking and her need to constantly be the life of the party. My FIL was concerned, but they tried to make things work with counseling. For a while, it seemed like things were improving. But recently, her behavior started raising red flags again. She was glued to her phone, going on these frequent girls' trips, and acting off. Well, it all came to a head when my FIL discovered messages on her iPad that confirmed she's been having an affair. Not just a fling, this is a full-on emotional and physical relationship with another man. To make matters worse, she's been meeting this guy in their home, the place they built together, and even parading him around their country club in front of their friends. And here's where it gets even worse. My FIL found messages where she talked about this guy while sitting in his hospital room as he slept. Like, he's fighting for his life, and she's texting her lover about how much she wants to be with him. She even sent photos of my daughter to this guy, my daughter. And one message that makes my blood boil: she told him about bathing my daughter, and then made some disgusting comment about wishing they could have had sex in that same tub while he was at their house. Despite all of this, my FIL, bless his kind heart, has decided to try to work things out. He wants to keep the family intact, and he asked my husband and his siblings not to confront her. He's hoping counseling will help again, and he prefers to handle this privately. Here's where I'm struggling. My daughter loves going to her grandparents' house, and we've made weekly visits a part of her routine. My FIL adores her, and I know these visits bring him joy, especially given everything he's going through. But I feel deeply uncomfortable with her being around my MIL right now. It's not just the affair, it's the fact that she's shown such a complete lack of respect for her family. She shared intimate details about our child with a stranger, used her as part of her disgusting little fantasy, and has brought chaos into a household that should be a safe space. On top of that, I'm pregnant, and my mama bear instincts are in overdrive. I feel like I need to shield my daughter from this mess, even if it's temporary. My husband, on the other hand, thinks we should keep the visits going for the sake of his dad. He doesn't want to make things harder for him, and he believes cutting off visits would only cause more pain. I suggested maybe keeping our daughter home for a few weeks to let things settle, but my husband thinks I'm overreacting. I just feel like letting her go over there right now is exposing her to something toxic, even if she's too young to understand it. So, Reddit, AITA for wanting to keep my child away from this mess? Am I overstepping by prioritizing my child's safety and well-being, or should I just suck it up for the sake of family unity? AITA for taking the graduation trip away from my middle school daughter? Alright, buckle up because this one's a bit of a roller coaster. I, 34F, am the mom of a 13-year-old daughter, almost 14, who's in 8th grade. She's at that stage where she's caught between being a kid and wanting to act like she's a grown adult who knows everything. Fun times, right? Anyway, her school is planning a graduation trip for the 8th graders. Think of it like a big send-off before high school, and my daughter was all in the moment she heard about it. She talked about it non-stop, who she wanted to sit with on the bus, what snacks she'd bring, how it was going to be the best trip ever. I was totally on board with letting her go until we started dealing with some behavioral issues that gave me pause. Here's the rundown of what's been going on. Chores? What chores? My daughter has a very short list of responsibilities. Daily, she just has to keep her room clean, we're not talking spotless, just not a tornado zone, and once a week, she's in charge of taking out the trash. That's it. But even with this minimal workload, she's been consistently dropping the ball. Her room's a disaster 90% of the time, and I feel like a broken record trying to remind her about the trash. The ex-boyfriend situation. She's been texting her ex-boyfriend behind my back. This wouldn't be a huge deal if it weren't for the fact that this boy treated her badly while they were together. I'm talking about controlling behavior and general disrespect. When I found out, I wasn't even mad, just concerned. But instead of owning up to it, she panicked and tried to rope her younger sister, 10F, into lying for her. The younger sister drama. When her sister refused to lie, my younger daughter told me she was scared of how her older sister would punish her for coming clean. That broke my heart. I don't want my younger child to feel like she's walking on eggshells around her sister or that she can't trust me to protect her. With all of that in mind, I told my daughter that the graduation trip wasn't a given, it was something she'd have to earn. I told her I'd sign her up for now to secure her spot, but if her behavior didn't improve, I'd pull her from the trip. She agreed to those terms, and I was hopeful she'd take it seriously. Fast forward to the school's Thanksgiving dinner. My husband, her stepdad, her dad, my ex, and I all went with her and her siblings. We were sitting together, enjoying our meal, when she got her food and immediately tried to leave the table to hang out with a friend, a girl from her class. Her dad asked her to stay for a bit and spend time with the family, and she reluctantly sat back down. Not 5 minutes later, she was gone. At first, I thought she'd stepped away briefly, but when an hour passed and she wasn't answering our texts or calls, I started to worry. My husband and I spent 40 minutes searching for her around the school, and when we couldn't find her, I was in. That was the final straw for me. She knew we were worried, and she chose to ignore us. She didn't think twice about leaving us sitting there, wondering where she was. That level of disregard for not just the rules we set but also for how her actions affect others made me decide to pull her out of the trip. Now, my daughter is absolutely devastated. She's been crying, begging, and trying to bargain her way back onto that trip. She insists it's unfair and that I'm being too harsh. Even her dad, my ex, thinks I might be overreacting, but my husband supports my decision. The way I see it, this isn't just about the trip, it's about teaching her accountability. I need her to understand that her actions have consequences, and this was a boundary she agreed to. But now I'm questioning myself. Did I go too far? Should I have given her another chance, or was this the wake-up call she needed? So, Reddit, Aita for pulling the plug on her graduation trip? Or am I being too strict?